Hey, what is going on, guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the new strong and weak picks for patch 7.10. So this patch, it looks like there's quite a few nerfs to a lot of the strong champions now, so there definitely is going to be a little bit of a shift in the meta come 7.10. But with that being said, let's get started. So first up here is Fizz, and this is getting stronger in one role and then weaker in the other. So they're buffing AP Fizz in this patch, which is kind of surprising because I think that AP Fizz is already in a really good spot right now. And then they're nerfing the top lane bruiser like Trinity Force tank Fizz that is also really popular. So what they're doing is they're increasing the AP ratio on his W, but they're decreasing the base damage. So this is obviously going to mean that once you do get a lot of AP on Fizz and once you do scale into the game, then your W is going to do more damage. But in the early game, with the base damage getting reduced now, it's not going to make this AD on hit Fizz in the top lane as strong in 7.10. Now for Graves in this next patch here, he is on the nerf list. Now I would say that these are more nerfs than buffs. He's getting a little bit of a buff to compensate here, but basically what they're doing is they are decreasing his Q's damage in the early game, and they're adding a little bit more of an AD ratio on it, so that once you do get later on into the game, then it's going to even out a little bit, and it's going to be about as good as it would be late game as it is in this patch right now. But the early game damage on it is taking a pretty big hit for sure, so you will notice in the early game now as Graves that he's not going to be as strong as a jungle champion. His ultimate is also getting nerfed. The cooldown is getting increased on it from 100 at rank 1 up to 120, and then it stays at 80 once you do get it at rank 3. But overall, they're targeting Graves early game here, and I don't know if he's really going to be that great of a pick anymore in 7.10. Right now in this patch, he's sitting at a 48-49% win rate, so he's in a decent spot actually, at least win rate wise. I'm not too sure if these changes are going to affect him too much, but I definitely do assume that he's going to drop a little bit in the tier list, and he's not going to be as strong as he was in this patch for sure. So Ivern is on the nerf list as well for this patch, but the nerfs are honestly pretty laughable. Ivern is sitting at the highest win rate for any champion in the game right now. He's got like a 55-56% win rate. I was really expecting more of a nerf to maybe his E or to his Q in this next patch, but what they're doing is they're nerfing his base movement speed from 330 down to 325, and then they are nerfing his passive. So his passive is what he used to like prep the camps, and they're increasing the health cost and the mana cost on that. So honestly, I don't think this is going to affect him too much. If you really need to, you can go for like a hunter's potion on Ivern now, so you do have the extra little bit of health that you can use to like sustain in the jungle if you are going to be losing a little bit more HP now. But come the mid to late game, Ivern's still going to have his shields. He's still going to be super annoying with Daisy, so this really isn't going to affect him too much. I would assume maybe like a 1% drop in win rate, but he's still going to be a great pick in 7.10. So it really looks like Riot is trying to bring down in power the stronger junglers in this patch right now, so it's no surprise that Lee Sin is also on the list here. So what they're doing to Lee Sin is they are increasing the cooldown of his ultimate from 90 seconds at rank 1 up to 110 seconds. Now Lee Sin, being a strong early game champion and being that point in the game where he is the strongest, like late game Lee Sin, it's not strong at all. You're playing Lee Sin because you want to have an impact in the early game, so by increasing this cooldown on his ultimate, it's going to make him quite a weaker pick for 7.10. They also nerfed his ultimate, or they nerfed the damage on his ultimate a few months ago too, so they're really nerfing this ultimate of Lee Sin's, and I think that Elise is probably just going to be the stronger overall early game jungler for this next patch if you do want to play like an aggressive style type of jungler, because I think that if your ultimate's not up as Lee Sin at level 6, it definitely is a lot harder for you to pull off ganks and for you to make things happen. So this cooldown nerf is going to hurt him quite a bit for this next patch. The next champion on the nerf list is Lulu, and this is one that I'm definitely happy for because Lulu is pretty much a pick or ban right now, especially in the higher elos. She's super annoying to deal with, especially if you get like a Caitlyn Lulu lane. So bringing her down in power is something that honestly Riot needed to do for this next patch. What they're doing is they're decreasing the shield strength at all ranks. Now they're decreasing it only by 10 at rank 1, and then at rank 5 it's going from 240 down to 210, so they're decreasing it by 30. And then they're also decreasing her base health from 552 down to 525. So this will make Lulu a little bit more vulnerable now in the laning phase. She isn't going to have as much survivability with that base health decrease and with the shield decrease. So therefore, if you can play a good early game support into her, someone like a Thresh, a Blitz, or a Bard that can look to just burst her out in the early game, then she isn't going to be as strong of a pick. But I think that her pushing power is still really good. She still does have damage in the early game, so this is going to bring her down in power a little bit, but she's still probably going to be a really good pick for 7.10. Maokai is also getting some pretty deserved nerfs in this next patch to his saplings. His saplings are honestly one of the most overpowered non-ultimate abilities in the game right now, at least in my opinion, because it just offers so much zone control. It offers so much damage if the enemy ends up stepping on it in a bush, and you don't even need to have a lot of items for them to do a ton of damage. You can have like 1 or 2 items as Maokai support, and you can still end up basically half healthing a squishy target. So what they're doing is they're increasing the mana on it, they're decreasing the base damage, and then they're increasing the max health damage on it from 6%, and that scales up to 8%, but instead they're now just having it at 8% at all ranks. So they are nerfing his E, but it looks like they're also giving his Q a little bit of a buff for 7.10. So what they're doing is they are decreasing the mana cost, or they're making the mana cost 50 at all ranks instead of like what used to be 65 at rank 5. So they're trying to get you to max out Q first now as Maokai, it looks like. They're also decreasing the cooldown on it. So I think this is more towards like making top lane Maokai and jungle Maokai a little bit more popular and taking away the power that this like support Maokai has right now. It looks like Zac is getting some pretty good buffs for this next patch. What they're doing to him is they are increasing the damage of his Q. They're adding in a new % health HP scaling on his Q. So his Q is now going to deal damage equal to 3% of his health. And then it's also going to have the base damage. The base damage is getting lowered by a little bit. It's only getting lowered by 10. So by adding in this new like % health HP scaling, this is really nice for Zac because he is going to be stacking that HP, and therefore you are going to deal quite a bit more damage with your Q. They're also increasing the collision AoE size from 200 up to 300, and then his Q's long range smack range has been increased from 100 to 125. Now Zac's knockup on his E is now going to scale with how long you end up charging your E, so it now scales from 0.5 to 1 second based on how long you charge it for. Zac's ultimate is getting a very tiny nerf. The channel time on it was increased from 1 second up to 1.1 second, but honestly this shouldn't really affect him too much. If you end up hitting your E as Zac, because the knockup duration has now been increased, then the nerf to his ultimate, you're really not going to notice it at all. Now, as for the changes to Ramus and Heimerdinger, they're pretty much getting mini reworks for this next patch, so I'm not going to go super into detail about the changes. Basically, what the person said who is doing the changes to Ramus, they said that the changes should be neutral in the sense that it shouldn't really be a buff and it shouldn't really be a nerf. They're just going to be switching a little bit of his power in his kit to different areas. And then for Heimerdinger, it looks like it will be a little bit of a buff to him. They're changing the power in his kit now to make him need to land his E and his W in order for his Qs to do a lot of damage. So I guess they're making Heimer a little bit more of a skilled champion for this next patch. If you are just playing Heimer and you rely on just placing down your Q to deal your damage, then I think he's going to be a weaker pick now. But if you can consistently hit your W and hit your E as Heimerdinger, then your turrets are going to end up doing more damage. If these champions do end up being like super strong for some reason in this next patch, then I probably will make a separate video on them. So that is pretty much it for the significant changes heading into 7.10. There are also some minor changes to Rakan as well as to Udyr and like 1 or 2 other champions, but they're changes that they're getting really aren't too significant and they're not going to shift their power at all, so that's why I didn't go over them in this video. But with that being said guys, if you did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.